Today is a different day than last week's. I'm not recording them on the same day because I have a new shirt on, the door's open in the background, and I have a new can of bubbly. Trust me, this is a new one. This is not the same one from last week. Definitely not earlier today. Last week, okay? Because in Michigan, you can only have one bubbly a week, okay? And this is a new one, see? I don't know if you can see it, but it's full. Can you see that? Yeah, a little bit. Camera's kind of crappy. But anyway, so this is the second part of our series about where I take the first paragraph of a Stephen King novel, put it into a Choose Your Own Adventure AI, and let it do its thing, okay? Last week, not today, last week, we looked at The Stand. We did The Stand, first paragraph of The Stand, and the first paragraph of The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. The Stand went pretty well. The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon did not. And so basically the rules are the rules. I either let the story run for 15 minutes, I end it after 15 minutes, or I end it after the main character, usually you is the main character, dies, or the story reaches its natural conclusion. In the case of The Stand, that reached natural. It didn't run for 15 minutes, but it did reach its natural conclusion. Go check out that video if you want to know what that means. And in The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, the main character does die at the end, but I think it also ran for 15 minutes. Anyway, that one was a disaster. My hair isn't cooperating today. See if that'll help. Bubbly in the hair. It's better. Okay. And my hand's all wet. Okay. Today we are going to be looking at It in The Outsider. I took the first paragraph. I actually took the first two paragraphs of It because the first paragraph was pretty short, so I did the first two. I think we'll start with that one. It's the most dreamlike out of the 6 stories I picked. It was the most like a dream because of just how weird it is. I mean, the book It is pretty weird too, so I guess it kind of works. Let me see if I can find it. That's Tom Gordon. We did that one already. This one, this is It. Okay, so we're going to start with It. And just let it run and we'll see how it goes. The terror, which would not end for another 28 years if it did ever end, began, so as far as I can tell, with a boat made from a sheet of newspaper floating down a gutter swollen with rain. The boat bobbed, it listed, righted itself again, dived bravely through treacherous whirlpools, and continued on its way down Witcham Street towards the traffic light which marked the intersection of Witcham and Jackson. The 3 vertical lane lenses on all sides of the traffic light were dark after that afternoon in the fall of 1957. And the houses were dark too. There had been steady rain for a week now, and 2 days ago the winds had come as well. Most sections of Derry had lost their power then, and it would not come back on yet. But here, at the intersection of Jackson and Witcham Streets, there was still electricity. I think that's the end of the paragraph of It. Now the AI kicks in. It seemed to me that something had happened in my neighborhood to make the lights bright enough for me to see them without glasses. I looked around, but no one else looking at me. I looked around, but saw no one else looking at me. Then I noticed a man sitting on the corner of his porch holding a flashlight. He was dressed in a long-sleeved shirt and trousers. He had bare feet. He was barefoot. His hair was grayish blonde, just like mine, and it had been almost a week since I saw a stranger. There was a traffic light here too, but no cars were on Witcham Street at the moment. The driver of the first car that came by turned left onto Witcham Street, but the light was still red for him, so he sat there with his engine idling. 2 children in the back seat of his car looked at me, and one of them started to cry. The man, probably their father, shook his head and told the children to be quiet. A few minutes later, he got out of his car and walked around to the trunk. He came out with a long ladder and stood it up against the curb at the far corner from where I was. Then he got back into his car and drove away. It was now or never. I walked quickly over to the corner, around the light as fast as I could. I kept my eyes on the man with the ladder. Suddenly, I saw the monster. It was crouched in a dark and wet yard across the street from the man with the ladder. It was taller than any normal man, and it wasn't even standing up. Its skin was shiny and dark gray. You could see its ribs sticking out through its skin like the rafters of a roof. It had no nose, just a lipless hole like a shark's mouth. It had no hair, just a ridge of muscles running from ear to ear across its skull. So I'm assuming it's like a comb over, but with muscles. So that's pretty wild. It only had 4 fingers on each hand, but its feet were like mine, and it could probably cover more ground than me in a single step. The monster was watching the man with the ladder. I looked back at the intersection and saw the light was still red for the first car. I had to get him, I thought, but how? I looked around desperately for something to help me, but the man was gone, and so was the monster. I could only run, or try to get from the branch. Try to get him with the branch. The light was still red for the first car. The children in the back seat were still looking at me. The one with the nose wiped her eye again. So apparently the second child doesn't have a nose. Okay? The man in the back of the car, there was also a man back there too, turned around and looked at me. It's now or never, I thought. I ran around the car and jumped into the intersection that traffic had stopped for the light, and I ran to the back of the line of cars and waited. The monster came out of the dark and ran around the front of the car. It looked at me and it took a step forward, but it didn't stop to see if the light had changed yet. It just kept going around and past the car in front of me. It started to run after it. I started to run after it, but the light had turned green by then. I ran through the intersection, looking back every few seconds. The monster was still coming. I had to get out of there, but the man with the ladder was gone. I ran out of the neighborhood and around the next block. The monster was still coming. I saw a fire hydrant, jumped for it, but my legs were not long enough. The monster kept coming. I could hear it now, its horrible wet snuffling. I could run or try to find something to stop it with. There was a brick wall at the end of the block, and an old tree in the middle of the street that I could try to climb. An old tree in the middle of the street. I don't know if it was growing in the middle of the street, or it fell over in the middle of the street. Either way, there was an old tree in the middle of the street. "You're not afraid, are you?" the monster said in my head. I looked around and realized that the entire street was looking at me. The other kids and their parents, all of their faces sad. The police and firemen, I don't know why I can't say firemen, standing at the end of the block, their faces furious. "I'm not afraid," I told them. "I'm going to stop this thing." I took off my backpack, and under it I had a pair of bolt cutters. I could get it over the wall and under the tree and cut the monster's legs out from under it, or I could just run. So it seems that this monster's legs are very thin if they can be cut off by bolt cutters, because bolt cutters don't have that big of a thing you can... I don't know. I took off my backpack, cut the monster's legs, or I could just run. "I'm not afraid," I said, again, and started running towards the fire hydrant. The monster was about to get me, and I was going to make him pay. "You're afraid," they all told me. "It's okay to be afraid, but you don't have to be. You can stop this." I kept running towards the tree. When I got close, I hopped up on it and pulled the ladder over. I pulled off my backpack and slid under the corner. The monster came into sight. It was almost upon me. "I'm not afraid," I kept telling myself. I reached the hydrant and slapped it with my hand, sending a jet of water spurting out of it. It hit the monster's face and stumbled back. It was about to get me, but I was going to make it pay. I stood upon the ladder and ran towards the monster. It reached for me, but its hand just passed through me. It wasn't afraid of me either. It just kept coming. I could hear its wet breath now, hot on the back of my neck. "You can stop this. You can get off this street. You can stop this." I reached behind me and pulled the backpack off the corner. I stood on it, threw it at the monster, hitting him in the face. It tried to get me with its hand again, but this time I ducked, and the blow landed on my backpack. "Not me. I can stop this. You can stop this. You can... ... I took off my shirt and wrapped it around the fire hydrant's handle. I pulled it tight and ran like hell. "You can stop this." I ran across the street. I could see the front door of the pet store and a long concrete driveway that led to it. There was a big tree just to the right of it, and I knew I'd be safe if I could just get behind it. I'm gonna pause real fast and turn the fan on, because it is very hot in here. Cool. Did it mess up the lighting at all? No, it didn't. Cool. Pet store monsters concrete. There was a big tree just to the right of it, and I knew I'd be safe if I just got around it. The monster was still coming. You can stop this. You can get off the street. I ran towards the driveway, screaming at the top of my lungs. I threw myself into the concrete and just hoped the monster's reflexes were as bad as everyone said they were. You can stop this. You can get off the street. The monster hit the hydrant with a crack, and it snapped in half. I'm assuming the hydrant snapped in half, not the monster. I looked up in time to see him tumbling off into the street. He was still screaming and still trying to get to me. I rolled to my feet and ran. You can stop this. You can get off the street. I could hear sirens in the distance. The monster was already off the road, and I could see the firemen and police aiming their guns at him the whole time. By the time I made it to the corner, they were shooting. The monster kept screaming as the bullets tore into him, until finally he just fell silent. You can stop this. You can get off the street. The world started to go black at the edges. I could feel my heart beat in my chest, in my temples. I could feel my teeth rattling in my head. I could feel the sweat running down my back. I could feel the terror that I was experiencing. I could feel the terror that I was putting into the monster. He was gone now. His face was mine, and I was his. He'd taken everything from me, and he could take me next. I needed to get off the street. I needed to get home. You can stop this. You can get off the street. I could hear sirens coming closer. I could hear my mom's voice in the back of my head saying that I was fine, that I'd be okay. She was right. I could stop this. I could get off the street. You can stop this. You can get off the street. I heard a voice in the back of my head counting 1, 2, 3. Get up. I could hear the monster's voice saying that he was sorry. Get up, damn it. I could hear myself screaming. Get up. I could hear myself screaming. Get up. I could feel myself coming back to life. The adrenaline coursing through my veins. The strength flowing back into my limbs. I could feel my feet hit the concrete. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. You can stop this. You can get off this street. I could feel the sirens drawing closer. Get up. I could hear myself screaming. I could feel my chest tightening, my throat raw. Get up. Get up. I could feel myself breathing. I could feel my blood pulsing through my veins. Get up. I could hear myself screaming again. You can get off the street. I could hear the sirens wail. It was close. You can get off the street. I could feel my legs take off the sidewalk and onto the road. I could feel the cars screaming past. I could feel my heart beating. You can get off the street. I could see the pet store, the yellow light beckoned me in. You can stop this. You can get off the street. You can get off this street. You can get off this street. I could feel my feet carrying me into the store. I could hear the door open behind me, and then I was inside. So that first bit was really good. But as soon as I guess I'm the main character. As soon as I get into the pet store, the story goes downhill real fast. I do really like that it's kind of like a poem, I guess, with the recanting sort of you can get off the street, you can stop this. I think that's really cool. But yeah, just yellow light back in the being, you can get off the street, you can get off the street. Then I was inside. You can get off the street, you can get off the street. I could see the walls of the cages. I could see the eyes watching me. I could hear the beasts behind their bars howl. I could feel my blood running cold. You can get off this street. I could see the staircase in front of me. I could hear the screams from upstairs. I could hear the monster lurking behind my bedroom door. You can stop this. You can get off this street. I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. I could hear the sirens drawing closer. You can stop this. You can get off this street. I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. I could hear the sirens drawing closer. You can stop this. You can get off this street. I could see the sirens drawing closer. You can stop this. You can get off the street. So that gets really repetitive. You say, who are you? You don't know who this person is. You can't trust them. The voice comes from behind you. Who am I? It asks. Sing-song. You don't know, and neither do I. The cashier stands behind the desk, looking up from her register as you approach. Hi, she says. Hi, you reply. She smiles at you. You don't know what to do. Should you smile back? Should you keep walking? You continue to walk towards the desk. The cashier stands approaching the desk. Do you want to browse? She asks. You nod as she grabs a few magazines from the table and steps aside. You look at these titles. You look at the titles. The Shape of You, Sugar, Spice, and Everything Nice. Hello, Gorgeous. You step closer to the desk. There's a doll in a magazine. She has long curly black hair. Her eyes are bright green. She has a huge toothy smile. You grab the magazine, looking at the doll. Her name is Gala. She is pink with purple polka dots. She has a pet pig named Pudding. You flip through the pages, stopping at random pictures. Gala stands at the end on the arm of a chair, on the arm of an old creaky chair. Her arms are outstretched, her fingers curled in fists. She is beaming. In the picture, her cheeks are bright red, her eyes are filled with happiness. You can't stop but smile at the picture. You turn the page. In the next picture, Gala sits in the same chair, her arms are outstretched, her fingers curled in fists, her eyes are filled with happiness. She says, "Death to the saints is the only way to freedom." You turn another page. In the picture, Gala stands in the chair. She stands on the chair, her arms outstretched, her fingers curled into fists. Her eyes are filled with happiness. Babetta's stomach growled. You step back. Samuel loves the sea. The cashier appears in the doorway, holding a tray of cupcakes. You step towards her. The cashier smiles at you. "Hi," she says. "Hi," you say. She smiles at you. You feel your stomach growl. The cashier smiles. "Would you like a cupcake?" she asks. You nod eagerly. The cashier nods, stepping past you and placing a tray on the counter. She begins to pull the cupcake with her from their wrappers, placing them on a plate. You watch as she opens her food. "Have you been a good boy?" she asks, beaming. You say, "No, I killed the monster with my face." She gasps. Her eyes dart to your face, looking horrified. You sigh. "Sorry to disappoint you." She smiles weakly, nodding slowly. She turns, walking past you and placing the tray on the counter. The cashier begins to prepare your food. You walk towards the counter, standing as far away from her as you can. The cashier hands you a cupcake. You smile at her weakly. You bite your cupcake, moaning in ecstasy. Must be a darn good cupcake. Moaning in ecstasy. Oh, you quickly finish the cupcake, licking the icing from your lips. "Do you want another?" the cashier asks. You smile. "No." You turn, walking down the hall. You stop at a metal door. The hall leads left and right. To the right, there's a staircase. To the left, there's a hallway that leads to a bathroom and a row of classrooms. You take a deep breath. Looking left, you can hear the voices of students in one of the classrooms. You can hear laughter echoing from the hall. You can smell freshly cut grass and asphalt. What does asphalt smell like? You sigh, looking right. To the right, there's a door that leads outside. There's a swing set and a slide with a round wooden climbing frame. There are 3 soft toys hanging from the frame. They're soft, cuddly toys, just the right height for little kids. In front of you, there's a gray door. To the left, there's a long hallway. At the very end of the hallway, there's a set of stairs that leads down. You can hear the cashier's voice echoing down the hall. You can hear the sweet, delightful sound of children's voices. You look at the long hallway leading left. There's a double door at the end of the hallway. To the right, there's a set of glass doors that lead outside. You can see the grass and the swing set and the slide and cuddle toys. You look to the left. You go to the left. You walk down the hallway, passing the double doors. You reach the staircase. You look down the staircase. On the first landing, there's a small fridge. On the second landing, there it is, a single bathroom. You walk down the stairs and find yourself in a strange room. You walk over to the shelf, pulling over a dusty-looking DVD. You slip it into your bag. You walk back to the hallway. You hear the sweet, delightful sound of children's laughter. You walk to the door on the left. You grab the doorknob, turning it and pulling the door towards you. You reach out, flipping the light switch and illuminating the room. There's a crib. There's a changing table, and there's a little girl about 20 inches tall sleeping in the crib. 20 inches tall, sleeping in the crib. There's a nanny's chair beside the changing table. You walk over to it, sitting down and leaning back. You put your feet up on the chair and close your eyes. The sweet, delightful sound of children's laughter fills your ears. You fall asleep in the nanny's chair. When you wake up, it's dark. You're still wearing the same clothes from yesterday. You look around. The nanny's chair is against the wall. The changing table is across the room. The crib is at the other end of the room, near the staircase. You walk over to the crib, bending down and peering inside. The little girl is still asleep. You look at your phone. It's dark outside. You've been asleep for more than 6 hours. You walk back to the chair, grabbing your bag. You walk over to the changing table, unzipping your bag and pulling out the DVD. You slip into the DVD player, turning it on. "Wake up, sleepyhead," you say, tapping the crib. The little girl yawns, opening her eyes. She looks around, rubbing her eyes. She sees you, smiling. "Hello," she says in an Eastern European accent. So this little girl, 20 inches, I don't know how old 20 inches is, but that's 6 inches. So that would be 12 inches. 3 years old, I guess. I don't know. She can have an Eastern European accent at 3 years old. I don't know. It's a thick Eastern European accent. I don't know. "Hello," you reply. "What's your name?" "I'm Marcia." "I'm Jacob." "Do you want to play with my blocks?" she asks. "Sure," you say. You pull out a stack of building blocks, handing them to her. She begins placing them on the table. You walk over to the staircase, walking upstairs. You walk down the hall, finding yourself in the kitchen. You reach into your bag and pull out a Tupperware container of lasagna. You take a bite, chewing slowly. So that was kind of the end of the 15 minutes for the It story. It starts out good, I think, but as soon as the monster dies, it kind of just does weird stuff. So like the first half's pretty good though. Like you heard it. I mean, comment what you think below, I guess. This next one, no, we did that one already. No, that was Revival. We're gonna do that next week. Revival's the best one. What's this one? That one's Salem's Lot. I'm gonna do that next week too. Okay, this is The Outsider. This is the second one we're gonna do today. It was an unmarked car, just some nondescript American sedan a few years old. But the black wall tires and the 3 men inside gave it away for what it was. The two in front were wearing blue uniforms. The one in back was wearing a suit. He was as big as a house. A pair of black boys standing on the sidewalk, one with a foot on a scuffed skateboard, the other with a lime-colored board under his arm, watched it turn into the parking lot of the Estelle Borga Recreational Park, then looked at each other. That's the end of the first paragraph of The Outsider. Now this is the AI taking over from here. What's going on? Asked the boy with the skateboard. You can't be from that park. The man behind the wheel smiled. He said, I'm not, but I have to go there anyway. You kids want to come too? It's only about a half-hour drive from here. He turned off towards the park. They followed him. They all got out of the car, and he led them through the gate. He pointed to a small building with a sign above it. Estella Berga Recreational Center, 3200 East Davison Street. Be kind to the historical park. Donations welcome. Hours, 8:30 a.m. to dusk. Now, I'm really surprised that the AI came up with that. That's pretty cool. Yeah. I don't know. The AI definitely has its moments. Like, next week we're going to look at Revival, and that one, the AI did a really good job with that one. Anyway, they all went in. There was a long corridor to the left and a row of lockers to the right. The man went up to the counter and put some money on it. He spoke for a moment with a short woman with gray hair. He handed her a bunch of papers with names and addresses on them, and she counted out some quarters and dimes. He thanked her and gave her a big brown bag of coins. He gave the skateboard and the kid his hand. They looked at each other and smiled. The man looked around. So I mentioned this last week. It likes to introduce a bunch of characters, but then it gets confused and sort of mixes the characters up. And I think that both of the two skateboard kids are now merged into one character, and it's just called The Boy, because there's only one boy now. I don't know what happened to the other one. We better get going, he said. Come on. They raced down the street through the dust and the sun, their wheels rolling over the cracks in the concrete. The blacktop turned to dirt and then went over a hill. There was a park right there in front of them. They parked their wheels and walked around it. Oh, excuse me. Raced down there. They parked their wheels and walked around it. Over the white rocks and through the scrub. There was a bunch of trees down, and it was really, really hot. I know that feeling. The boy had a bucket and a rope in the truck. They spent the rest of the afternoon filling it with rocks. They raced back to the car, and off they went again. He took them up to the end of the park and through the little woods where it was really quiet. They found a really cool hill, and it wasn't as steep as the ones at the quarry, but it was almost as high. I don't know how that works out. It cannot be steep, but be just as high. I don't know how that works. They raced their wheels up and down the tracks and covered in the hill. Tracks covered in the hill. They raced their wheels up and down the tracks covered in the hill, trying not to go too fast or fall off. I don't know what that means. It was funner than fun. It's funner than fun. They walked down to the truck and they ate their sandwiches and raced their wheels some more. Then it was dinner time. They walked back to the car and drove home. The next morning he woke up early and headed to the door. This is... I don't know who he is, if it's the man or the child. He woke up early and headed for the door. He picked up his bowl and walked out to fill it with food for their bowls. They were asleep in the back seat. He leaned into the truck to get the bag and something splattered on his shirt. He looked down. there was a puddle of brown water. He didn't remember that being there last night. He got into the truck and looked back towards the little woods. It was so quiet, something was wrong. He turned and backed out of the parking space. The little puddle of brown water had come from the hole in the ground. He backed around it and headed toward town. The trees started coming down in big chunks. Chunks of trees. Never thought of it that way. They were all in the road. He hit one that was in his way. It knocked him out of the way and took out the gas pump at the gas station. He hit the brakes, and there's a tree across the highway. It was coming right at him. He looked behind it. It was almost to the end of the line of the trees. He grabbed the wheel and turned it hard to the right. The truck fishtailed out onto the highway. He put his foot to the gas and kept it there. He stayed in the middle of the road, headed towards town. Now notice that you or me, I, is not a main character in the story. I thought that was interesting. He was almost there. There were a line of cars in front of him at the filling station. He got moving towards them. The trees were all down. The sun was out, and it was really hot. The wind had come up. It blew dust and gravel at him. I've never seen the wind blow gravel, so it's got to be like a crazy tornado or something. He saw the big truck coming straight at him. He turned his head away. There was no way he was going to make it. He put both hands on the wheel and stared out the windshield. He saw the ground flash by. There was a roar all around him. Then everything went black. So I'm assuming the man just died, and the little kid in the back woke up with his head hurting really bad. He was lying on the floor in front of the driver's seat of the pickup. It was too hot. He pushed himself up and sat there for a second, waiting for his head to stop pounding. 26:47. This video is going to run a little long. When it did, he looked around. The trees were gone. Everything was kind of gray and dusty. He looked back towards the highway. There was a big hole where the woods had been, and it went all the way down to the bottom. It was all torn up too. It was hard to see what was at the bottom except for big pieces of wood and dirt. He didn't like to look too close. He had a funny feeling in his gut. It kept going up and down and all around. Might have like an animal in there or something if it's moving around like that. He got out of the truck and stood there for a second, just staring. It felt like something bad had happened, but he didn't know what. Well, the forest is gone, so maybe that's start there. And there's a big hole that goes all the way to the bottom. Is that like China? I don't know. He started walking toward town. He walked past the gas station and the diner. He saw a bunch of cars and some pieces of wood that had been houses. That's wild. So the houses just exploded, I guess. There's just a bunch of wood left. He stopped when he got to the store. It was all torn up too. The windows were smashed and there was broken glass everywhere. He went inside. It was pretty dark and dusty. He reached out and felt his way along the shelves. He found a door and opened it. It was a bathroom. He didn't need to go that bad. He was hungry. He was so hungry he could hardly think. He thought about eating the cheese that was hanging in the middle of the store. Cheese that was hanging in the middle of the store. So what I think about when I hear cheese hanging in the middle of the store is like there's like a fishing wire with a little hook on the end of it, and there's just like American cheese. It's hanging from the ceiling from this fishing wire on a hook. I don't know what the AI was thinking or what. I don't know. That's just what I picture when I hear cheese hanging in the middle of the store. And I don't know if I would eat that or not. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not feeling the cheese hanging in the middle of the store. It had been a day since he thought about getting something to eat at the gas station, but it was too far away. He was thirsty too. It had been over a day since he had had anything to drink. He looked in the mirror at his dirty, dusty face. He was missing some of his hair. There was a big welt on his forehead and his lips were cut. He looked as if he had been in a fight. He wondered where he had been. Apparently he forgot where he was too. He looked around in the store. There was a package of cookies on the shelf. He could smell them. They had just come out of the package. So I'm assuming these cookies are alive then, because there was a package on the shelf, but then they come out of the package. And they were probably stale, but he couldn't stop himself from grabbing them. What if that's the weird feeling he feels in his gut? The cookies that are alive. He tore open the package with his teeth. So maybe some of the cookies got out, but then they resealed the package, because he had to open it with his teeth. They tasted so good, he ate them all in no time at all. He tried not to think about how hungry he was or how thirsty he was as he finished them off. There was a can of peaches in the back of the store. It had been opened. He could smell them from where he was standing. They were calling to him. He couldn't stop himself from grabbing them. So, the peaches are calling to him now. Maybe this kid's a little crazy. I don't know. He saw his reflection in the can. Okay. His eyes were huge, staring back at him. He could see the excitement in them. He could see how hungry he was. He could see how easy it was to grab the can of peaches. He opened it with his can opener. Apparently, he just got a can opener. Can opener. It was still a half full. He quickly pulled it out and shoved it into his bag. He didn't want it to end. He felt like he was in a dream. He walked out of the store with his bag of peaches slung over his shoulder. He was so happy he couldn't stop smiling. He walked down the highway, not knowing where he was going. He had a pocket knife and his bag of peaches. A can opener too, I guess, if he needs that. He knew he could live there for a long time. His stomach started to growl. He was so hungry. He just had cookies and peaches. What more do you want, guy? He thought about the soft, squishy peach inside his cheek. So he's just holding it in his mouth. That's probably why he's so hungry. He doesn't know how to swallow his peach. He thought about the can sitting on the kitchen counter. He thought about how hungry he was. He looked down on the bag on his shoulder. He didn't want to, but he knew he could never eat them all himself. He had made a promise. He had made a promise not to eat them all. Why? I don't know. Why did you make a promise not to eat all the peaches, guy? They're your peaches. You're starving. Eat the darn peaches. Okay. When he was about a mile down the road, he started to feel sick. He had eaten too many peaches. Maybe that's the problem. Why he didn't want to eat them all, because he'd get sick. He could feel it in his stomach. He knew he would throw up, and then he would die. He tried not to, but he started to turn around. He didn't want to die like this. He didn't want to die without ever eating anything again. We just ate a bunch of cookies and peaches, man. He puked and threw up until there was nothing left in his stomach at all. By the time he had made it back to town, he was able to walk the rest of the way. He didn't have enough money to buy himself something to eat, but there was a little bread and jelly left in the bottom of his bag. Bread and jelly. I don't know how bread and jelly got in the bottom of his bag. He didn't have enough money to buy himself something to eat, but there was a little bread and jelly. Oh, I heard that already. When he got to the store, there was a little bread and jelly left in the bottom of his bag. He grabbed the bread and jelly and ran outside. There was a gas station up ahead in the corner. There was a soda machine outside the gas station. He could buy himself a soda with the money he had left. He sat on the corner and stared at the gas station. He had never been this far from home before. He didn't know where anything was. It was too late to go back now. There was a man behind the counter of the gas station. There were guns and ammo hanging from the ceiling. There were motorcycles in the parking lot. His stomach started to growl. He was so hungry he could barely think straight. He could see a picture of a sandwich on a little stand by the door. It looked so good. He could see a picture of soda and a hot dog and ice cream. He could see the price next to each one. 79 cents, $1.29, $4.59. And he looked down at the little stack of money he had left. He had only $2.20 left. There was a long line of people waiting to get into the store. It would take him an hour and a half to get a Slurpee. There was a little girl behind the counter. She was so pretty. There was only 2 flavors. 2 flavors of little girl? Okay. There was a picture of Snickers in the bottom right corner of the little stand. He could see it, even from this far away. It looked so good. He wanted it so bad. He could see a picture of a diet soda in the top left corner of the little stand, and it looked so good. Diet soda's like bad for you though, guy. Don't do that. Drink bubbly instead, guy. Come on. Not a sponsor. He looked so happy. There were Snickers, looked so good, diet soda. He wanted it so bad. He could see a little boy behind the counter. He looked so happy. There were 2 tables in the middle of the room. There was a group of people playing cards at one and a family eating at the other. There was a line of cars waiting to get gas. There was a car wash next to the gas station. He could see a picture of a banana split in the window of the gas station. It looked so good. He could see a picture of a Burger King in the window of the car wash. It looked so good. It's a Burger King car wash. It's a burger wash. He could see a little girl behind the counter. She was so pretty. He could see a picture of Hot Wheels car on the wall behind the counter. It looked so good. Don't eat Hot Wheels, okay? He could see a little boy behind the counter. He was waving at him. It looked so good. He's gonna eat the little boy now? Is that what's up? He could see a little girl behind the counter. She was waving at him. It looked so good. It would be so easy to wave back. He could grab a soda from the little stand and sit in the corner of the room and have his dessert as he watched the little boy clean cars. Why was he watching little boys clean cars? That sounds weird. It would be so easy just to do that, and he could skip school and stay in the room all day. There was plenty of food to eat, and he could play with his Game Boy. The little boy would probably let him stay. That's cool. He's got a Game Boy. Apparently it survived whatever knocked all the trees down. He could skip school and go into the toy section. He could buy himself something from there. There was a new Star Wars toy in that they just got. He could see a picture of it on the package. It looked so good. He's gonna eat the toys? Is that why probably why he's throwing up and so sick, is he's eating the darn toys. He could see a little girl behind the counter. She was waving at him. It looked so good. He could see a little boy behind the counter. He was waving. It looked so good. It would be easy just to wave back. There was a little boy in the gas station's mini mart. He was sitting in the corner of the room, hunched over a table. There was a dirty plate and a bowl in front of him. There was a knife stuck in his eye. He screamed. There was a long line of people waiting to get into the store. He had nothing to sell. He couldn't afford to buy anything. He just sat in the corner of the room. He screamed. There was a little girl in front of you in the line. She was screaming. There was a gun in the mini mart's corner. He pointed it at her head. She screamed. There was a little boy behind you in line. He was hungry. There was a gun in the mini mart's counter. It was pointed at his head. He screamed. So this is where you get introduced into the story. You could hear him from here. There was a big empty house in the distance. It was near the woods. He sat in the living room. He had been playing with a little girl. He had been eating candy. There was a bowl of it next to them. He had been there the whole time. It was the only thing in the room, and had been filling it up with candy. It had been right there in front of them. They had been dipping their fingers into the bowl of candy. They had been putting the candies on each other's faces, and had been touching each other's skin. He screamed. You could hear him from here. There was a big hole in the floor of the mini mart. It went straight through the floor and into the basement. There were some bottles and cans in it. They had been tossed in there, and it was the only way to keep them from falling through the hole. He screamed. You could hear him from there. You screamed. You screamed so loud you couldn't help it. You put your hands over your ears. You looked around the room. The people were all screaming too. They were all looking around in confusion. They were trying to find their way out. So that one ran for 15 minutes. And yeah, it's really weird. But I hope you enjoyed it. Next week we'll be looking at my favorite one, which is Revival, and then we'll also be doing Salem's Lot as well next week. So, and by next week I mean I didn't record these on the same day. Get that straight, okay? Different times, I'm wearing a different shirt, the door's open, and this is a can of bubbly that wasn't here last week. Okay, and so there's links in the description to our Facebook group, Instagram page, Patreon. We might have some Patreon exclusive stuff up there at the moment. I'm not sure because because we're having some issues with that. So just hang tight. Something will come along eventually. So yeah, check out the links in the description for all of that fun jazz. I don't know how to end a video.